Welcome to the Creative Community Podcast presented by Destination Arate. I'm David.
And I'm Mark, and we are building a community of creatives who work together to achieve creative excellence.
And speaking of community, before we get to today's episode, I want to give a big thank you to Leaf Institute, which is where we are recording. They've graciously allowed us to use their building, so you'll see different locations from us if you watch on YouTube. The location we're in right now is the library, the first one, and our guests are brothers, Del and Dana Thompson. Dana and Del, I don't know how I should say which order I should say those in. Okay, alphabetic is great. Well, guys, thank you for joining us today. Would you guys just maybe say your name and then maybe a project that you're working on or maybe a project that our audience would know you from? Let's start with that.
I'm currently working at BJU Press on a bunch of different textbook projects. And at home, I am working on a Bible Visuals International project right now. So that's keeping me plenty busy day and sometimes night. So that's what I'm doing.
I'm working, I work at a company called Smile Makers in Spartanburg, and we make children's products for the dental market and medical market, things like stickers and things like that. I'm the new products designer for that. I've worked there going on 16 years, well, it has been 16 years, and on the side, I've got a project with, I don't know if you know Champ Thornton. He, at one time he was my pastor. At one time he was at Bob Jones as I think the vice assistant to the president or vice president. And anyway, all that to say we have a lot of history. And Del and I worked on a book for him about 10 years ago, probably, a Bible storybook, God's Love, a Bible storybook, which was really one of my favorite projects that we worked on. And he's working on another book, and I have the opportunity to illustrate that for him. So very thankful for that.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, honestly. As I was talking about earlier, our Patch the Pirate episode is our most listened to episode. And if I'm correct, you guys worked for Patch the Pirate at some point in time, doing something for him, which I'm hoping to find out more about. So, in fact, I think you guys did a book about Mr. Slippy River Race, and you did the cover, I think, and illustrated the book itself. Mm-hmm. So I know you guys have at least done that, and I don't know if there's any other historical stuff. The first question was just about Majesty music, wasn't it?
Right, yeah. So we are super curious to know the specifics behind your guys' history with Majesty music and Patch the Pirate. Like David said, you know, you guys, our Patch the Pirate episode is really popular. And I grew up ingesting everything Patch the Pirate, you know, and coloring books, you know, activity books, anything, even the Patch the Pirate Summer Club that they had, which had a lot more of the written type materials with it and things. So we're just curious to know what your guys' involvement was with Majesty music.
Well, I remember I was working at the press. It seems like I was there forever. And Lance Flower approached me, kind of via Brian Johnson maybe, and said, we need some Patch the Pirate covers. And I'm like, okay. And I think they'd done Patch Goes to Space, which is like a photo art montage or something like that. And they wanted to do something more cartoony. So I think, was it Kidnapped on Island? Was that the first one we did? Or was it Goes to the Jungle?
I think Kidnapped on Island was the first one that we did. And I know I drew it at the time, and actually Dave Appleman and Jim Brooks at BJ were our art teachers, and they had sort of recommended us to be able to help them.
That's how that happened. Yeah. I don't even think I knew that.
Yeah. So that was and you know, I was really I'm not saying more interested in it than he was maybe, but I think I had more of the opportunity to draw it and to sort of come up with characters and things. And Del was always very gracious to, I mean, like, I'm not trying to sort of minimize what he did, because what he did was very important, but I got to enjoy myself by playing with the characters and things, but my drawing skills and my painting skills were not very strong, and his are and were, and you know, he came in and made it look better than it would have if I had just done it by myself.
See, Dana is being very kind, because really all the Patch the Pirate characters comes out of his head, and the look for all of that was really, I mean, that's your strong suit, those characters, and the animated feel and the whole 9 yards. And yes, I enjoyed painting them.
But I think that was
It was a good combo.
That was probably the first one that I remember. And then I think we went back and did the jungle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were kind of going backwards for a little while.
The jungle has Banana Man in the upper corner
it's kind of
or something
orange sky, and again trying different color schemes and things like that. So, I mean.
Yeah, and we were really growing at that time anyway. We were just out of school or still in school. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
And I had just tried the airbrush for the first time not that long before, and so we were experimenting with that, trying to get that sort of Disney-esque.
We're trying for the,
But really, with your sensibility, it almost leans more Warner Brothers UPA kind of in its style. But yeah, trying to get a real smooth finish to it and trying to figure out what paints to use. But it was a good tag team. You would draw, I would paint. I really liked that. Yeah.
Was it your first time collaborating together on a professional project, or had you guys done that in the past?
I mean,
I'm sure we'd done something before.
I mean, it may have. I don't know the answer to that truthfully, but it may have been one of the first sort of real paying jobs that I got to work on that we worked together, But I think there was actually. I think there actually. Yeah, sorry. That is a good question. I think there was actually a cover he and Brian Johnson did before the two of us did one, and Patch had a beard actually. I don't know if you ever saw that, but I don't think the character.
Our producer's saying yes.
Yeah, I don't think it was a very developed, the whole concept of Aspire yet.
I vaguely remember that now. It was a like ink and wash kind of.
Yeah.
If anyone can find that cover, it would go for like $1 zillion at a homeschool market somewhere.
I think you drew it, and I think Brian painted it.
I think that's exactly what
Brian,
happened.
by the way, was our art director at BJU Press.
Okay.
So for many years, and he is a very talented guy.
He is.
Very, very skilled guy. Just very.
Give him a task, he can do it.
Yeah.
Anything.
So I wanted to ask. I have 1,000 things I want to ask you. In my mind, I have a couple covers that stand out to me, and I don't know if there's any that stand out to you guys that when you got done with it, like it still sticks out in your mind. Like maybe the first one does, but is there another one where you're like, man, we executed that one? Do you have any?
One you're really happy with or something? Or
well, just like the one for me is The Lone Stranger.
Oh.
It really, in my mind, captures what that story is going to be about because they're back to back, I think, and they're being surrounded. And there's a point in the story where that happens, and that one to me just stands out in my mind as something I would look at over and over and be like, "This is what the Lone Stranger looks like."
Okay.
So I don't know if there's something for you guys that you're like, "Man, I'm really happy with the way that the riverboat looks," or
I think Mr. Slippy was the most fun because it was complicated.
Yeah, I think, and I think his painting of the background and things was really nice on that. It was kind of mostly a yellowish cover, right?
Yeah,
is what
I'm remembering
that. And I think actually I've seen the artwork recently. I've got one piece at home that I'm supposed to return, and I think it's sort of had faded out just a little bit because that yellow is very, probably very fleeting. But
I remember I wish I could redo Kidnapped on Island. That's what I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
me
too.
Oh man, I wish I could do.
What about it? That was a good one. I like that one. I can literally picture it in my mind. Right?
Well,
I can picture it too.
I remember I was again new to airbrushing, so we painted it in, and then I added smoke to the dragon's nostrils, and it was too heavy. And now I could fix it, but back then I was too scared to touch it after that. And it's like, okay, look, I might as well paint from scratch rather than try to fix this thing. So it just kind of went. Nobody seemed to complain, but I always felt like, because I can't remember who said it was too heavy. Was it Ron or somebody?
They had another marketing guy there too at the time. And I think, and I was just thinking about him the other day, and I thought he was a great guy. He was a super guy, but he was not afraid to say, that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Which sometimes art needs.
Yeah.
Right. And I was afraid to fix it, so I said, take it or leave it.
So did you fix it or did you redo the whole thing?
Nope, didn't touch it.
Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Just let it go.
That's good. Well, that was going to be my next question, and you can take as long or as short on this as you want, depending on your feelings. But what kind of direction did you get from the Hamilton crew? Like, did you guys were they really involved? Did they want to see everything, or did they just kind of want to see the end result and then tweak it from there? Or who did you work with? I guess as far as that went.
I think as far as involvement, when Ron was up until recently, when Ron has not been involved, like with the covers. I mean, I think we met every time with him and Shelley, possibly earlier on. She later on the meetings, she was not necessarily part of that, but Ron was, and whoever the art director was. Dwight Reed was you might know Dwight actually. He's at Pensacola.
Oh, really? I need to look him up.
Yeah, I'll give you more information later. But anyway, he was their art director for a while. Stephanie True was.
Stephanie True.
I've forgotten some of the people's names from before that, but they would sit in on those meetings too, and they had the responsibility of art directing the whole thing. So they may need to say, we need to sort of hit this or whatever. But Ron was always, very what's the right word? Affable,
laid back.
Just, very, very laid back, but and willing to, oh yeah, okay, that might work, and just very open to ideas. And we just submit some rough sketches first, and they might be really rough, and then as time went on, they just there's a level of trust that you sort of build up. Yeah. So you can be pretty rough at some point, and then usually maybe a tighter sketch would follow.
So this is what the question I was going to ask was, there's rumors about, you guys are from California, or like you lived out there, or one of you lived out there?
We
grew up in Hawaii.
You grew up in Hawaii, okay.
Is that better?
That's fine. I've just heard rumors about you guys either applying at Disney or any experiences like that.
We never applied at Disney.
Okay.
I applied at Don Bluth.
Oh, Bluth, okay. Interesting.
And got a lovely rejection letter. But that was fun.
But maybe like...
I didn't meet John Pomeroy at that point, which is...
Right. So, okay. So I just didn't know like what your... Like you guys probably had art background in high school, and then when you got to college, you studied art, or I didn't know what your journey was to get to where your teacher or your chair would say, "Hey, you should use these guys for Majesty." I didn't know what the process was.
Probably said, "You want somebody cheap?"
Yeah. Well, Dave Appelman and Jim Brooks. Jim Brooks was our illustration teacher, and he's a wonderful wildlife artist of renown. I know in the Southeast for sure, but he's a wonderful artist. He and has been like a mentor and a good friend through the years. He, I think he knew us obviously from students. And Dave Appelman, the same, was more on the graphic art side. He did Dave, I think, did the lettering for the covers, back before. This is, obviously not computer. It was before then. So he would do the overlays and things like that, inspect the colors, come up with the design of the type. Or, I think he created a lot of the type himself. And then at some point, I think they were just happy, not happy, but to just turn it all over to us to do, felt like, you guys could do it. So it was very kind. Give those guys thanks for that, especially as your teachers and friends and mentors. Yeah. But the path that, go
Well,
ahead.
no. I mean, but our school was really small. Our high school was really small. So we really didn't have art classes per se, but Dana and I were pretty rabid animation people, and we would do our little Super 8 films at home, stop motion, or I don't know. We did any drawing stuff. We did some, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, thought Disney was like the end all be all. And then when we got to college, I actually went art ed because I didn't want to take a foreign language. But actually, that served me well, because here I am doing textbooks, so understanding teacher talk has been very helpful. But college was really where we got started. Jim Brooks was a great resource because he was, he could talk the language we were trying to talk and not quite understand what we were saying. But he'd been there, he'd done that, and that was great. Yeah, Mr. Appleman was great, although I really didn't interact with him as much. He was a great graphic designer, and I was like, graphic design, I want to just draw stuff. Mr. Bopp too was a good. He seemed to understand what was going through my head, at least when I got there, and was very encouraging. I mean, and I sound like I was poo-pooing Dave Appleman. No, he was very encouraging as well.
You just were more interested in the illustration side of things, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Rather than working with type or things like that, is my guess, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and at the time, what I wanted to do when I came to school at Bob Jones, I wanted to major in cinema and minor in art.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do animation. Yeah. But Dr. Gus said, nope, can't do that. I mean, it was not it just wasn't structured that way where you could major and minor in the same school. But now you could. So, too late. Missed it by that much.
The Lord knew.
Yes.
Well, I was curious to know, at that time when you guys were at Bob Jones working, and working on your degrees, who were maybe just 3 guys that were not at Bob Jones, but that you just knew of, that you looked up to as like, these guys are the stuff. Like, I want to be
as far as
them.
illustration
and art or animation.
Oh, I know you like Chuck Jones.
It's true. Yeah, Chuck Jones would have been, as far as animation. Tex Avery, I was very influenced by him. Jack Davis is illustrator. Yeah. And in as an adult, had 3 opportunities to meet him, and my wife arranged for us to have dinner one night with he and his wife. I mean, he was very gracious. He treated us just like we were relatives. I mean, it was really, really, really neat. In fact, he didn't know me from Adam. I mean, he didn't remember. I'd met him a couple times before, but he actually was going to give me the keys to his car because his car keys kept setting off his car. You could hear his car going off, in the parking lot. So he gave me the keys and said, "Go turn that off." He didn't know who I was, really, but he was just very gracious and kind.
You could have had an extra car.
But yeah, a couple of those guys. But you had different guys. I'm sure that you.
Yeah, Dana and I, our skill sets our likes are kind of similar, but our skill sets are a little different. Dana he can do abstract shapes and make them real appealing, and I tend to like more realist stuff or more atmospheric stuff, and not that I'm very good at it, but certainly enjoy doing it. So I think we complement each other on Patch the Pirate, where Dana could draw and I would paint them. I know we were going pretty fast doing some of those. It seemed like forever at the time, but now when I look back, I thought, we could invest another 10, 15 hours in these. Hope they got their money's worth.
I think they got their money's worth.
Oh, that's true.
We really didn't charge a lot at the.
But it was quite an education doing
it was, and it has been.
Stuff.
In fact, I would sort of say this now just as an aside, but I would really like to go back and sort of revamp everything. Yeah, I would. I've thought
so. I noticed that the Mr. Slippy illustrated book looks a lot different from the Mr. Slippy cover. And I didn't think it looked bad. I just noticed that it looked like you would do it a lot differently if you had another run in it. Because the book is a lot newer.
Right. In fact, I was really hoping that those books would continue. So we did 3. Ocean Commotion, Mr. Slippy, and Operation Arctic. But I don't know the reasons why. I don't know how well they sold. That might have been the main reason. I don't know. But I think also, I'm guessing in a lot of that was during some trying times for the family, for the Hamiltons and things. So I'm just guessing that their focus had changed on some things.
Hey everybody, David jumping in here real quick. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that we're in a different place than we normally are. That's because the Leaf Institute of Art and Vocation in Greenville, South Carolina, Brandon and Michelle offered us an opportunity to meet with artists in person whenever it was safe to do so, and this was one of those opportunities with Dell and Dana. Leaf Institute exists to create a community at the space where creativity and calling connect, so a very kindred spirit to the Destination Arte brand. So as you reconnect to your individual calling, they hope to be a place where you can learn and thrive. If you're in Greenville, South Carolina, or even if you're looking for online resources, visit leafinstitutegreenville.org to learn more. Thank you to Michelle and Brandon.
You guys are... I'm so excited to ask you guys this question because you are, in my mind, one of the most leading industry experts as to this topic.
Oh, man.
It's a lot of our audience is... Christian or faith-based people, and a lot of them are designers or art students, and they're going to be faced with this challenge if they haven't already, which is doing art and design work for a ministry. And how do you navigate those waters, being asked to do things for free, pro bono, at a discounted rate, giving someone your price and then being like, what in the world, So just in that space, we wanted to ask you guys, and you can maybe refine the wording if you want to, but how have you guys navigated that space, and what advice would you have for young artists and designers facing that challenge?
Yeah, the biggest question I have is you guys have worked for ministry, but then you've also worked for secular companies or for other people. So is it the same approach as far as dealing with a client, or how do you, because a lot of times it is tricky when a ministry finds a young artist and they just are like, could you design our bulletin for us? And then you end up doing it for free. And then is that part of my gifts that I'm using for the church, or do I need to be, looking to redeem my time and use it to support my family? Like, that's kind of the idea that we're looking at there. And you've said you've worked for Smile Makers.
Let's get that.
Yeah. You've worked for Smile Makers for the last 16 years, and you've also worked for ministries during that time.
Well, like even with Patch the Pirate, for example, when we first started out, I think we were doing it for like $450 a cover. It's not that anymore, but it's not. I mean, and I don't think it's too far off the mark of like what anything should be normally. Like in the outside world, I think. I'm doing most of them now nowadays.
Yeah.
Just but
and they're better.
No, but I it would be a typical price for what I would do for anybody else. Okay. To be honest, there came a point. I know for me. I mean, I'm just being honest. Whether it's right or wrong, the Lord has to judge that. But early on especially, I think I took more of a ministry approach mindset with that. Plus, we were learning a lot. But there did come a point where I thought, I am spending a lot of time on these things, and I want to get it right, and I don't think it's wrong, to ask more. And they didn't have any problem with that per se. But maybe that goes a little bit to your question on some level. As far as pricing, and I've also had somebody ask me, this was a while ago, a ministry to do something, and how much did I charge? And then I think this is the way it worked. It may not have been exactly like this. And then when I gave them the price, it was like, let's just half that and say, would you do it for that, or whatever. It wasn't even like, would you do it for that, or would you consider that? It was almost like expected that I should do it for a lot less, and I felt really insulted, to be honest. I felt like I don't think that's right either. So I don't know if that's helpful answer.
And this was not meant as a gotcha question for any of your employers. It was more of just like your approach to it, and as you navigate those waters, if you have
I'm just trying
advice.
to give you some examples of what happened.
Yeah. I just want to make that clear. We weren't trying to throw anybody under
the
bus.
Yeah. And I hope that didn't sound
I will
like
name
that.
names right now. No, actually, I think we've had a pretty good time of working with ministries. Most of the people are not not interested in the ministry discount, you know,
Yeah.
or they certainly understood, you know, the laborer's worthy of his hire. But obviously there are folks that are interested in getting it for free because it's for the Lord, and you know, sometimes that appeal is what I needed to hear, and sometimes it's not. I would just say that each job we took, at least when we were working together, we would talk about, especially if there was anything kind of odd about it or questionable, either that can be in a good way or that can be in a bad way. Like when we were working with secular properties and stuff like that, there were times where we said, we're not doing that. We need to back out of that. Or let's think about this. Or in one case, let's ask everybody in the world who we know who has good advice whether we should do this job or not. And that's, I don't think that's an unreasonable path to take. And I think
I know one. I mean, I'll just throw this out because it might be something of interest. But like the Prince of Egypt, remember
that's
that?
the one I was
movie?
referring to.
So we were offered the opportunity to work on several books for that, and you know we were really interested in that, and that was like, wow, this could be really good for us, you know. And but we had to make a decision. Like the decision was like, you need to tell me like tomorrow or like today, you know, like at the end of the day, and we're going to fly you out to the animation studios, and so you're going to be out there and meeting these guys. Well, the thing is, you know, we really didn't know what they were going to do to the story. So
and we had heard that they altered, you know, instead of Pharaoh's daughter picking Moses out of the river, they said Pharaoh's wife would pick. And that's, I can understand how that's a cleaner for their story. But
we just didn't
but in
know
the back of our head was like, if they're going to change that, which is really nothing, I mean, it is something, but you know what I'm saying, in the scope of things, what else are they going to do? And it's funny because we got advice, and people who I thought would say, stay away from that, were like, go, do
it
it.
is interesting.
And then people who I thought were going to like say, go do it, were like, no, don't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
And there have been times since the company I work for now is a secular company, there have been times where I've thought, you know, some of the things that I sort of said no about earlier, and I don't have anything specifically in mind, I might not say no now, but it's not always, the Christian thing isn't always no, I can't do that. There are other responses, I think, that you can have that demonstrate Christianity, but it's not always not doing something. And I'm not talking about things that are clearly forbidden, you know,
Right.
or you know what I mean, but that's not the only response you have.
It sounds like you guys are saying that it's a combination of maturing and
think
relying on the
so.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I think that's
And good counsel.
And good counsel.
Yeah. We've had very good friends, pastors, who, you know, we consider friends, and you know, I mean, they weren't just our pastor; we knew them, and
they knew what
and
we
they
were
knew
up
us
to,
and
and
and we're very interested in what we were doing, and very thankful for those relationships.
This is just a purely curious question. What did you guys end up doing about the Prince of Egypt job?
We didn't do it.
You didn't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
we have a really nice sample piece, though.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't like situations where you have to make a decision, you know, without all the information. Yeah. You know, whether you're buying a car or something, you know, or whatever. Our dad was like that, you know, and I think, you know, that's just like, nah, you know, nothing's that important that you have to. Not saying I probably haven't done that, you know, about other
Right,
things,
we're all human.
but you know, but in that case, Adele's looking.
And I regret that decision.
I knew it.
No, well, looking back, the film really did a pretty good job.
I did think so too.
And so
actually.
I was like, oh, stink.
Yeah,
you
probably
know?
in retrospect, you know, if we'd known some of those things, it'd be like.
But
could
yeah,
probably
they
do
were
that.
asking us to make a decision where we just didn't know, and there was a lot of question marks, and I think we did the right thing. It's just in hindsight, it's like, okay, I wish we didn't maybe tried that, but you know, water.
Can I share
under the
one
bridge.
little
Go
quick
for it.
story?
Uh-oh.
This is kind of a neat one, and it's one that, you know, probably somebody else listening out there is going to go, you were not gonna you got upset about that, and it's like I wasn't upset, but it was just we were working on some licensed books, and one of them was for the Wild Thornberrys. I don't know if you've ever heard of that at all, but I think it was Wild Thornberrys.
Yes.
And so the book came through, and we took those, and those we did take sort of sight unseen, because I'd worked on several of them, and they were fine. They were just benign stuff. And this one had some little phrasing in it that was
very evolutionary
to me. It was kind of one of these things where it's just
where Darwin the ape said something. I can't remember.
Darwin the ape.
Yeah.
First.
What was our first clue?
No, but so I called one of my old professors at school who was a science teacher, and I said, well, what does that phrase mean, or what does this word mean? And he told me, and I said, would you have a problem with that? And I don't think he was as hard on it necessarily as I was, but I told my agent, our agent, I said, this makes me uncomfortable, because I don't want to, support this, support that, and maybe I was really, zooming in on one, because it wasn't like a overarching sort of message. But he says, well, write out a letter, so I did. And the manuscript came back, and that was missing. The thing that was causing me concern, that whole section was missing. And I said, why did they change that? I was just curious. He said, well, they actually ran out of, they needed some more copy room, so they cut that part out. And I was like, to me, that was like, I think about that every now and then, because I was just like, really? That's why they did it? Yeah. Fine with me, but, they did it. And
there are other answers than no.
Yeah. So it was really neat. And, God answered that prayer. So.
Wow. Thank you so much. Well, are you ready for the last question?
Yeah. You can ask it.
Okay. We're excited to ask you this question, but it's our podcast and we can ask the questions we want to. So there's probably other questions we should ask you, but you guys probably don't work together on art as much now. But the question we have is, growing up and yeah, do you want to?
No. Never.
We're
again.
done.
No, you heard it here first. The question we have is, how did your brother influence your art career? And how did your brother influence your art career? And is there a point in time where you can look back and be like, wow, I'm glad that happened, or wow, I wish that had never happened? And yeah, I just kind of want to know.
Maybe
because
we should leave the room. Maybe I should leave the room. So
yeah, if you want to step
freely.
out, and then we can switch. But
as
brothers, we want to know.
I really think this is an iron sharpening iron kind of thing. We both have different views on stuff. You know what I'm saying? Brothers are just different.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, I can tell you that Dana's work ethic would drive me crazy, because he was just
so lazy.
He was dedicated to the job and worked
that
really hard.
I could not arrive at the same thing he could arrive at in less time. No, let me just say this: he's my big brother, but he when we were kids, we lived in a neighborhood where there was another girl who liked to draw, and she was his age.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys were great. They were really good. And I was always trying to join that drawing club, but I was always getting rejected. I'd show them my little character, and they'd be like, nah, you got to go back, or, but it was true though. He, I give the Lord the credit, but he just has great natural ability, drafting ability, drawing ability. And I've always looked up to that, and I've looked up to him, and so he's always been sort of my somebody I'm sort of I'm not trying to aim to do what he does, but just
thank goodness.
He's pulled me up. Then now that could be a drag on him. So yeah, I don't know how he feels about that. So I've wondered about that sometimes, where I've sort of held. Because we work together and stuff, I think he really is kind of an unsung sort of. He's not somebody who's going to toot his own horn, and but I hope.
I'm gonna toot somebody's horn here in a minute.
Well, but I really, I mean, he's got the credentials to that we're all very happy for.
And Dana's being super kind
Well,
and
I'm
generous.
Just saying.
I was gonna say it's your turn now, Dylan.
Okay, well, I have to say I trust Dana's instincts. Even business-wise, I was always, you listen, don't give me $1. I'll find a way to spend it. And Dana was always much more conservative. No, and that's good. And taught me a lot about patience and even in my work. I mean, you may not know that, but I used to want to just blast through things and be done. But Dana would never quit until he was satisfied, and then he would still go. And that was always a challenge to me, because I was, okay, this is stopping point. Maybe I could go a little farther, and then seriously, your drawing skill, I mean, he talks about draftsmanship and stuff like that, but abstracting things into funny shapes, but you can. And color choices, I mean, I can do funny colors, but they don't sing like Dana's use of complementary, bizarre colors, but they work. And I think it's because they come from your head, If me, I'd be trying to do a formula. Okay, we got blue, we got orange, we got red, we got green. Those seem like really good ones. But you've got like blue, purple, green, orange, red, and it's really, it works.
We grew up in Hawaii, so there's a lot of bright colors in Hawaii.
That's true, but then I would just mostly do green, I think. Green and lava black.
You guys probably do that yourselves too, though. I mean, don't you have like a vocabulary of images that you've seen that you like of artists or things, And I think probably, we all do that. Is we're sort of, I've thought about that a lot more, just in recent years, that, what am I drawing from, that I remember here that's sort of influencing that, that why do I think I haven't quite met some goal here? Yeah. Is it because you're comparing it to something in the
back of your head,
your library, in your mind,
But I really do think that we're and are good complements, because we do approach things a little differently. We think of things differently. It's funny, if we drew compositions, they might be the same content, but like a different approach altogether. Or sometimes they'll be strikingly similar, which is also funny, because we have the same core vocabulary, I think, at some point. The brother thing. Are you reading my thoughts?
I was going to ask, are you, different people have different relationships with different artists in their life, So are you two the ones that you go to, and it could be one of you is, one of you isn't, that you go to for a really tough, honest critique, or are you more the person you go to, the other person that you go to for like encouragement, or, what is that relationship like there? Because not everyone, and this is not a bad thing, usually in your life as an artist, you have maybe 2-3 people who will give you, if you're lucky, that gut honest, critique. So I didn't know if that's the relationship you guys had, or if you guys are a little bit more just like, hey, it looks great, keep going, more encouraging. So
that's a good question. I
really
don't know that we critique each other so much. Now, I will say this: if I'm ever in trouble and I need help, I know who to go to, because you can do about anything. Yeah. And you're cheap.
That's it. See, I'll work for food, man. Yeah, no, so I'm going to put him on the spot, because I did ask him this not that long ago. The problem with asking my brother is he's got a lot going on. So, but like one time I asked you recently, not that long ago, to like evaluate some things that I had done. You probably didn't even remember.
Was it the book cover?
No, it was just a bunch of art, because working where I am now, I'm not doing as much illustration as we did before. So some of my illustration, I feel like, I'm not working in it as often. So, can you critique some of that? So I would ask him definitely, and I have asked him, but probably for a lot of reasons, I would go to him first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I needed advice, I would go to Dana. I think just because we have a good vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
and we've done that kind of thing over time. Although lately, I don't think we've really, other than this art critique that I somehow don't remember. Yeah.
Can I go one more, and this might wrap us up, or it might just start us down a whole other trail. But my question is, looking back over your career, and it can be stuff you've worked on together or not, but top 3 favorite projects that you guys have been involved in, just personally. And again, they can be things you've worked together on or not.
Well, the Bible Storybook was fun.
That was a good one.
Can you describe that a little bit?
That was the positive action, God's love. Storybook, right?
Yes.
And it was just, I liked it because it was my attempt to mimic Dana's style, and thankfully Dana was there to fix it. And so that was one where I drew it, and you digitally painted it.
Right, and John Cunningham. Worked on that too. Do you know John?
I know of him.
Yeah, he was great, and we
fast.
really needed. Yeah, we really needed him.
And but that was a good stretch. The other thing I liked about it was challenging to do Bible stories in as fresh a way as you could,
Yeah, not truly cartoony, but sort of caricatured a little bit.
Not as elaborate or cool as some of these newer pieces I've seen, but definitely kind of a step in that direction.
Yeah, it was nice, and the writing was great. Champ again wrote that, and really, I've had several people that I've known, mostly like newer Christians, older people who are newer Christians who want to reach their family and their grandkids and things like that. I've known there's a couple families that I'm thinking of, but have used that book and really love it. And I'm very, we're very excited to have worked on that.
It was a crazy project. It was a good project.
We've done some animation. We did, I don't know if you would include this, but we did some animation with for St. Francis Hospital System in Greenville. What was that, about 7 years ago?
Yep.
Maybe?
Yep.
And we did a series of 5 or 6
Brandon McAllister doing the after effects on it.
Yeah, Brian Martin was the guy who created the designs. It was sort of a
Hope the nurse.
Faith
the nurse.
the flying nurse. And it was very, line drawings, kind of squiggly line
sort of
drawings.
R.O. Bleckman type.
Yep. Yeah, with a very minimalist background, and we did it in Illustrator, and just to create that sort of broken line, take the scissors and just break up the line, just cut it.
And Corey helped us on that. Corey Godby.
On one of them for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And anyway, those were fun. Because that was back to animation, which we really like. So
yeah, I was gonna ask if anyone ever said we're gonna do this movie and we want you two guys to lead it, not to do all the work necessarily, but to lead it. Well, what?
We've tried to do Patch the Pirate for years. I mean, for example, that's that would be one of the things that we would have tried to pitch that. And David Rogers, a friend of ours, has pitched that. David's in animation, and he would be good too. So, and I know they did do an animated film recently, not that long ago, but. Yeah, that's one of them. But yeah, would we do it? Yeah, sure. I'd be interested.
After I took a big nap.
We like to ask our guests, if we handed you a pile of cash, what would you do it? And most people say yes.
Yeah.
After the nap.
Yeah. I have to thank Jordan for taking pictures for us, and Ethan for producing. I have to thank Andre for making these cables, literally making them. And I have to thank Adele and Dana for joining us, and my brother as always. It's been a huge blessing to me, and it's just been fun, and I've learned something, and I hope other people listening do too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Once again, we are so grateful to Del and Dana for joining us for this episode. I wish I could tell you where to find their artwork, their individual artwork, but you know what? The best place I know to tell you to go is patchthepirate.org. Just find all those illustrations they've made over the years together as a team. You can subscribe to the Creative Community Podcast on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on SoundCloud, anywhere you get your podcast. We're even on Amazon Music now. So look up the Creative Community Podcast or Destination Arete, Arete, and follow us on there. Leave us a review. Send us to a friend who you think might enjoy listening to what Del and Dana had to say about illustration and working together and ministering together. And then follow Destination Arete, Arete, on Facebook and Instagram, or shoot us an email, destinationarete@gmail.com. If you want to be part of the newsletter, because you get to hear information and news about the podcast, about the brand, about projects we're working on early before everyone else does. And then if you follow us on Instagram, you'll get a chance to participate in our community, submit questions, get to know us a little better, get to know our guests a little better, and be up to date when we have another interview like this one, which we will be coming your way in 2 weeks with another interview like this one. So we'll see you then. Oh yeah, get a drink of water and
Drink of water.
or in the bathroom or anything. We have almond joys. We have.
Do you have almond joys?
We do.
Do you want I might raid them while you're all
Yeah,
stuck
they're
there
in
on
that.
camera.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Producer, control yourself.